Good morning, Paul Davies.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to Peru.
Thank you.
So far, according to the present scientific knowledge, uh, was there was there be before the Big Bang?
We think the Big Bang was probably the origin of time and space. So there was no time before the Big Bang. Time began with the Big Bang. That's the best thinking we have. It is possible, however, that our universe is only one of many universes, and the complete assemblage of all these universes is called the multiverse. And if there is a multiverse, then time has no beginning. But if there's just one universe, then time began with the Big Bang and there was no before.
Can we say our universe or the multiverse is a product of random and causality or intelligent design?
The uh, best understanding we have of the universe is that it is governed by laws, the laws of physics, and uh, when we look uh, when we look at the various phenomena in the universe, these can all be explained by the laws. Uh, if by intelligent design you mean a God who does miracles, I do not believe that. If by intelligent design you mean that the laws of physics are the product of design, then that is possible, but it would not be designed by anything like the traditional God.
But what about a philosophical God? He's necessary to explain the universe or not?
Not the sort of God that people think about in popular religion, no, because most people who want some sort of religious God think of that as a super being who can work miracles. But as a scientist, I don't like to think of miracles. I prefer to think that the laws explain the universe. But we do have to ask, where do those laws come from? And so uh, people who would like to believe there is design in the universe, uh, in my view, they should forget all about miracles, all about God who intervenes in the world, and think instead about the origin of those laws. And that's the proper place to think about God and science.
Um, are there any possibilities of another life in the universe?
It's clearly possible because I don't think life is a miracle. I think life is the product of physical processes, and if they can happen on Earth, they could happen somewhere else, and it's just a question of probabilities. Because we don't know the process that turned non-life into life, we cannot estimate how likely it is to have happened twice. It may be that on Earth there was a very long sequence of chemical processes before life began, each of which is very rare, and in which case there will be no life beyond Earth. But we can also imagine that the steps from non-life to life are quite easy and that there is life everywhere. Because we don't know what those steps were, it's impossible for us to estimate the, the probability of life beyond Earth.
So what about the intelligent life?
That's even harder, but once you get life, we know how life can turn into intelligence. We've seen it happen on Earth. It's called Darwinian evolution. And so, given that there is a planet with life, there is some probability that intelligent life will emerge. But it still seems that that would be rather rare. And I would estimate that if you had 1 million planets with life, perhaps one would evolve intelligent life. But again, we don't know how to work out those numbers, so this is only a guess.
How do you explain the UFO phenomenon?
UFO. Yeah, there are many explanations for UFO reports. Let's just consider two. Uh, Sometimes people see things in the sky, lights, for example, in the sky, and these are often caused by natural events or human technology seen under strange conditions. And I have investigated some of those reports and I have found the explanations. But sometimes, even when you tell the person, the witness, what the explanation is, they don't want to know. They say, no, that wasn't right. And I've explained a number of them that way. The other, more dramatic UFO reports are alien abductions, where people will say they fell asleep in bed and then they woke up in the middle of the night and there was a strange being next to them, and then they floated up and went into some spacecraft. And there are many stories like that. And I think these are examples of what are called lucid dreams. This is studied a lot now by scientists, the particular type of dream state that seems very, very real. You can't tell the difference between the real world and the dream world. And I have had these dreams many times, and I can easily believe that people think they really were abducted by aliens, but they're just dreaming it.
In the case we were visited by aliens, they can be dangerous.
I don't think so. If aliens wanted our planet, they could have come any time in the last 4.5 billion years and taken it. There's no reason they should come now. So I don't think there's anything dangerous about aliens. Any danger, we would know about it a long time ago.
What about the future of our universe? There will be a big crunch.
This is still uncertain. At the moment, the evidence suggests that the universe is expanding faster and faster, and so it looks like it will end in darkness and cold and accelerated expansion. But we still can't be completely sure. And in particular, because we know that the reason that the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate is due to something called dark energy. If the dark energy remains constant, then the expansion will go on forever. But if the dark energy should get less and less and one day become negative, then it's possible that the universe would start to contract at that stage and end in a big crunch. But at the moment, almost all cosmologists say no, there will be no big crunch, that the universe will go on expanding forever.
What about time travel?
Time travel, that's a fun thing to speculate. Travel into the future is very easy. In fact, we have done it. But you just have to go very fast. An astronaut, for example, will travel about a microsecond into the future of somebody who stays on Earth. So that's not a very great amount. But if you could travel close to the speed of light, it would be possible to get, say, to the year 3000 in just a few months. But you need to go very close to the speed of light to get to Earth year 3000. But going back in time is what is more fascinating, and that looks very, very difficult. Nothing we know about time says it's impossible, but if you look at the various mechanisms that would be needed to go back into the past, for example, a wormhole in space, these things would not be possible with human technology, would need a super civilization to create a time machine that could go back into the past. So it may be that such a thing never happens.
Um, can you tell something about your next books?
Oh yes, I have it right here. I can show it to you. It's a book about life. There was a famous physicist, Erwin Schrödinger, who gave some lectures 75 years ago in Dublin in Ireland with the title, What is Life? He was a physicist. To a physicist, life looks like magic. But we would like to understand, how do we explain life with physics? And my book begins where Schrödinger stopped, and I think I have explained life in terms of physics. Here it is. It's called The Demon in the Machine, and it will come out in January. And it attempts to understand life in terms of patterns of information. And so I think the correct way to explain life is by looking at the theory of information and the theory of physics and the chemistry of life and putting all those together. And that's what I've done in this book.
But you know, our kind of life is one of several kinds.
Of course. This book is an attempt to understand life in a more fundamental way, to have a definition of life that would be true whatever the chemistry. It's a definition in terms of information, not chemistry. And when I use that term, if you have, say, a memory stick on a computer, it can have the same information as the computer. I can transfer it to another computer, or I can transmit it down an optical fiber or a telephone line. The information stays the same, but the substrate, the material in which that information is incorporated, that can be different. So information has something which transcends ordinary matter, and so the ideas here in this book would apply to life of a completely different type as well.
What about conscience? We think because of we have a brain, or because we have a certain kind of entity?
I don't know. I think it's a mystery. There's a whole chapter about consciousness in my book. I don't think we understand. Life is hard enough to understand, but consciousness is even harder. I think it's a mystery.
Okay. So far, science cannot explain everything.
No, of course not. We should never think that science has explained everything. That's not quite the same as saying can explain everything. There are many mysteries in the universe. We don't know what causes the dark energy I mentioned, and then there's also dark matter. We don't know what these things are, but we hope that by doing more science, we will find out. We may never find out about consciousness. That's a very, very tough problem. But I am always reluctant to say just because we don't know doesn't mean God did it, or it doesn't mean a miracle. I don't like the idea of a God who could work miracles and explain things that science can't at the moment. Sometimes that's called the God of the gaps, the idea that when scientists can't explain something, we need God. We don't need God, we need better science.
Yes.
If there is a God, it will be a God who is somehow responsible for the whole universe and its laws, and not for poking around among individual molecules and things. That's a horrible idea.
Okay. According to your view, what do you think about the future of humankind?
Oh, I keep changing my mind. Generally, I'm optimistic that humans have a great future. But just in the last few years, I have become worried about artificial intelligence and whether humans will even be needed on Earth in another 100 years. And it could be not that we will be wiped out by robots or anything like that, but that humans simply will have no place in the world that they have created. And so if you could get in a time machine and come back in 10,000 years, I'm not sure there would be any humans still on Earth. That's a very gloomy view, but I think it might be true.
What about the, you know, supposedly we are rational, but many of us are irrational.
Yes.
So it's possible we can exterminate ourselves.
We could certainly exterminate ourselves. So there are many ways that can happen. People talk about nuclear war.
Yeah.
There could be a pandemic, like that is a killer disease that would spread rapidly across the world. There could be some natural disaster as well, like an asteroid impact. There are many ways that civilization could collapse. It's very hard to destroy an entire species, but certainly human civilization could easily collapse, in my view. There are many ways that civilization could collapse. For example, the complexity of our communication networks and our control networks is so great, it could be unstable against an accident or deliberate sabotage, and then the whole system would collapse. And humans have become so dependent on technology now that I don't think we would do very well if it was suddenly taken away.
What about religious fanaticism? Uh, you think we are entering to a new middle age?
Well, it's easy to look at some of the crazy things that religious extremists do and think we're going back to the time of the Crusades or something like that. I actually don't think so. I think that all that's happened is that because bad actors, bad people, have access now to technology, which was not available 500 years ago, that we notice these people more, we feel more threatened, but it's still only just a small group of fanatics. But because religious terrorism gets such a lot of news, we think it's more threatening than it really is. And so I don't think religious extremism is quite as bad as most people make out. Religions clearly are still flourishing across the world. People seem to need some sort of religion, and the vast majority of people are not religious extremists or would not resort to violence. But we tend to lump them all together, and we think, well, religion is just a cause of misery in the world. But it's a distorted view just because of the ability of a few religious extremists to do dramatic things like blow up buildings or release microorganisms or something.
Do you believe in a kind of God in an afterlife?
I don't think I believe in an afterlife, but I believe in a kind of God of a very abstract form. Sometimes it's really not distinguishable from just nature. I really think that the laws of physics need an explanation, and so when I use the term God, which I try not to, it's really in connection with the source of those laws.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul Davies.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.